So that's my topic for the day. And it is a bit of a, I mean, people have different views on this. So I'll present my view, but I'm open to questions, and I'm open to having a dialogue. This kind of a topic is where one needs to have a dialogue to arrive at a consensus. So I've kept just about 4 or 5 slides, and the next 20 minutes we'll try and have a dialogue to arrive at what sort of works for various industries. Um, but before I start off, uh, how am I? How have I done within Happay and in other companies? So I've been part of a couple of very large corporates like Bharti Airtel, HCL. Those are kind of Indian multinationals. I've also been part of Seclor cybersecurity setup, which is again a relatively smaller setup, and now in Happay, which is again a Series B funded startup, fintech. We are in the spend management space. I've also been part of Wunderman Thompson. So essentially, I've covered both the spectrums of whether you have large budgets or you have smaller budgets, or if you want to outsource to agency, how do they work? And so to that extent, I think I will be able to give a strong viewpoint out here. Uh, and that's kind of my uh, my interest in this entire thing. So before delving into the topic, um, you would have heard that content is the king, and this is like a old saying. But distribution is the queen. That's something which Jonathan added. Jonathan from BuzzFeed. This was about 3-4 years back. Uh, so the most important thing in this, whenever you are kind of deciding the content strategy, whether it should be in-house or it should be outsourced, the first thing that you need to decide is what do you want to distribute. So that's the most important consideration, and it's $1 million question whether it should be in-house, whether it should be a outsourced content. So here is my thumb rule. My thumb rule is that if the content has strategic importance, so when I say strategic importance, what do I mean by it? Anything which is kind of a big rock content, which you will eventually kind of make smaller content pieces out of it. That's the most important content. That is essentially a company's viewpoint, and that is best kind of articulated by the company folks themselves. You cannot have a external guy explaining what my product is, explaining what are the use cases, and so on and so forth. Again, the context that you have to take is that all of this I'm talking about niche products, niche product like spend management, Happay or Seclor. Those are all niche products. If it is IT services, which is more or less commoditized at this point of time, then you need to go to the third-party experts, and there a third-party viewpoint becomes very important, and that of course cannot be in-house. So that's how you should consume this particular uh, viewpoint. Also, when you are distributing, there are multiple things in which you will try and distribute. It's either you use the WhatsApp channel, you also have a sales force, your sales people, your customer success teams, your business development reps. These are huge areas through which content can be distributed. Most of the folks actually don't take that into consideration. So that's very important. And then you also have the most common ones like the SEO, like the um, content syndication, and those kind of channels, which is fairly well known for the marketing people. But if you are in the B2B space, you need to make sure that your own teams like the sales person, your BDRs, what is the message that they are taking? And that is again best done in-house. You cannot have an outsourced guy come in and talk about the company or talk about the products. It is better in-house. So that's on the strategy piece when you're deciding what content can be outsourced, what content should be in-sourced. So if that hypothesis is more or less something that all of you subscribe to, then how do you set the chessboard pieces in order to win? Now, this is where I would want to quote Gartner. Uh, Pre-COVID and post-COVID, what has happened is Gartner is now saying that almost 80% of the B2B sales interaction will occur through digital channels by 2025. Now, this is a huge statement. Why is it so important? We'll have to understand that most of the B2B sellers, the sales enablement that was happening before, say, March, all of it was either in a physical form where you're giving out the brochures or you're giving out some leaflet or anything of that sort, where they are having a physical meeting and they are leaving behind something. So that was typical sales enablement that was happening. Now, all of that, if you actually have to bring it back into the digital and ensure that the sales guys should be able to use those content and should be able to sell, that's a huge change. That's a major paradigm shift that has happened in B2B. This is one part where most of the guys are not talking about. This is one content which will actually kind of take off in the next 6 to 9 months. And this is one area where I personally feel that all the talk about ROI from marketing, this is one area where you can actually generate immediate ROI. And so, hence, most of the content marketers and marketing folks will take notice of this change. Uh, so, again, if this is so important, should you do it in-house? Should you do it, get a agency to do it? Uh, there's no straight answer, but my guess is that because you need to scale up pretty quickly, it is better that this part is partially outsourced. So what do I mean by partially outsourced? So things like, suppose if you have to quickly create a demo video, or suppose if you have to quickly create some sort of a ROI calculator, or any kind of battle cards that has to be quickly created. Those are things where you basically have the raw material, you can provide it to a content guy who can actually then mix it and quickly give you the results. So that's how I kind of feel that sales enablement and content, how should it be tackled? At this point, I would like to just pause for a minute and RP, if there are any questions, I can quickly take that or I can move to the next slide.
Let me just check. Just give me a moment. Somebody is asking, is it, I don't know whether you are addressing it in the subsequent discussion, but somebody is asking, is it also a budget question that when you want to spend X amount, and then you outsource, or then you outsource then you shift budgets in house?
Uh, I think that's a very good and a valid question, and there's a reason why I didn't address the budget part. Uh, if you actually see, uh, if you do it in house, you will be spending time. You will have to do recruitment. You will have to provide tools. So it is not that if you're doing in house, it comes cheap. It Research has shown that it's almost the same cost as outsourcing. Uh, Perhaps the quality will be slightly a bit of a challenge if you do it in house. So those are the considerations that you have to take. If it is almost the same cost, whether you outsource or you do it in house, then the cost is not actually a consideration. The consideration is whether the content piece that you are trying to create, is it strategic for the company? Is it a big rock content for the company? So cost, to my mind, is not a factor at all. RP?
Sure. There's one agreement for you with you. Uh, MN Rao says, I agree with Shashwat, as in-house developers knows what they write and what they do ethically.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. I quite agree on that part. If there are no further questions, let me move to the next slide.
Yeah, please carry on.
All right. So now that you have set the uh, chessboard, and you have kind of more or less decided what is the king, what is the queen. So the next important question would be the rook, bishop, and knight. And should they be outsourced? Should they be in-house? So the way I look at it is, the most important chess piece, apart from the queen, is the knight, because it can actually jump a couple of pieces and it can help you kind of gain momentum. It can help you win, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to use that analogy into content, and I feel that any thought leadership content, for example, there was talk about benchmark report, and that's a very good thought leadership content that somebody can create. Or in our case, we have also done things like CXO diaries, where we got a lot of CFOs, and they talked about how they are dealing with spend management in the post-COVID era. So that's again a very good content, something very unique content, and hence that's the night. But it's not actually the big rock content. So that's how that's another piece. Also, a lot of AMA kind of is happening these days with the online version. That is again a very good uh, content where you are giving your company's point of view, and that is a very kind of an informal session where you can actually express the view in terms of why this change is required, what are we doing about it, and things like that. So for example, in our particular case, we actually take these opportunities to explain that so far people had been going for partial automation. Why should they go for full automation? Why should they go for a best of breed service provider, and so on and so forth. So that is the night kind of content. The other two would be the bishop and rook. Now, the way I define bishop and rook kind of content is, these are largely both these pieces, they either move in straight line or in diagonal form, and so it's more or less it's a one-way street. And anything which is a inside out content, uh, best created in house, those are the bishop and rooks. So things like you have a lot of product calculators, you have a lot of ROI material. Some people actually use battle cards, some use newsletters. Those are content pieces which are better created in house. It serves only one purpose, to actually explain to the world what are we doing within the company. And so these are again content pieces which should be kept in house. RP, any questions on this part, or can I move to the next one?
Just give me a moment. None so far.
Awesome. So now that we have kind of assembled the uh, complete the important pieces near the king and queen, what about the front line? And that's a very important piece in terms of in the front line, and this will actually help in the distribution. This will help you scale. This will help you take the message to the maximum possible. You'll get the maximum reach because of this. And this is what I call the pawns in the chessboard. What are these pawns? So um, some examples can be off-page SEO. So you're doing a lot of SEO to get inbound, and that is one piece where it is best left to the specialist. Of course, you can define that these are the keywords that are important for the business, and after that, it's the expert's job to ensure that you get featured in the first couple of pages or first couple of searches. So that's very important piece. Again, you don't need too much of a company's viewpoint. This is more like this content can be created using your website, and anybody and everybody who has some writing prowess can help you in that. So this is not something which is very strategic, and hence it can be outsourced. Then you have the banner ads or the video content, some of the shareable pieces and pieces which you will put out in social media. These are again content where it is better that you get an expert to quickly create it for you. It is better that you actually get a outsource agency to create these videos, again using your big rock content, so that you can then focus on the strategic pieces, whereas getting the leads and getting all of those social messages going, that can be handled externally. So whether it's deciding the media, deciding on how much of monies need to be put, which are the places where the banner ad should be shown, what needs to be created, all of this can be outsourced. It is better that an expert agency actually helps you in reaching out to the right audience with the right set of content. So that's on the banner ad piece. And the third piece, which is PR, article, and syndicated content, again, this is best left to the experts, because the news reporters and all of that, you have PR agencies, you have the editors who have complete control on this part. As a marketer, it is better that you leave this aspect to the experts, and this part can be easily outsourced to various sort of agencies which are available in the market. uh, you don't have to create in-house experts for it, for this particular dissemination of the content. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was in many B2B companies actually print advertorials, and they do a lot of events and roundtable. Of course, now with COVID, this has come to a standstill, but advertorials is something which people still do in trade magazines. And this is again another piece where editor of the magazine will be able to help. and will be able to write better than in-house guys, because they know the audience better, they know the community better for that particular magazine. So it's better that this is again handled by an external agency. So that's how I view the in-house content and the outsourced content. Uh, this was my last slide. I leave the floor open to questions.